Weekend Welder. We're going to show you how to build and install this decorative signpost. And along the way, we're going to show you a bunch of new tools coming up on Weekend Welder. To do this project, we're going to use a new tool, the skil saw. Well, it's time for another new tool. What we're going to look at today is a 7 1/4 inch circular saw, which is commonly called a skil saw. In this particular instance, we're actually using one made by Skil, but all the major manufacturers make one. This is something that just about everybody has in their garage or needs to have in their garage. And although it's not a terribly good tool for metalworking, there are a number of instances where it is the best tool for the job. This is just a standard 7-inch abrasive blade, which is a pretty quick tool for cutting through metal. It's actually quicker than a Sawzall. It doesn't have the power of a chop saw, but you can carry it around a lot of places, and that's why we're using it today. Well, that's all it takes to get it ready. Let us show you what we're going to do with it now. What we've got here is a 24-foot piece of 3-inch square tubing. Even though I can pick this thing up and carry it around, it really isn't terribly easy, and I'd have a hard time getting it up on the chop saw, even if I did get it in the work area. We only need half of the piece for the project we're doing now, which is a decorative signpost, so we're just going to cut it in half with our skil saw. Our 3-inch square tube is going to be the upright for a signpost. We're going to use this piece of 1 1/4 inch tube as a cross piece, but we want it to actually go through the 3-inch tube. Now, this is a fairly easy cut to do if you've either got a torch or a plasma cutter, but we realize that not everybody has one of those, in which case a skil saw is a good choice. Well, we've got it cut all the way through now, and this is exactly what we wanted to have. We'll get some clamps and clamp this up and get it welded. Now that we have our major pieces cut, it's time to start putting everything together. There's quite a few things that happen on this crossbar, so the first thing we need to do is get it laid out. Our total cross piece is 36 inches long. We determined that we wanted 16 inches protruding both up and to the far side, and so the first thing we're going to do is mark that. Our upright is 3 inches wide, so next we mark that. What remains on the original piece is 29 inches. Our sign is 24 inches wide, which means we have 5 inches left over. We're going to divide that by 2 and leave 2.5 inches on each end. On our sign, the holes to hang it by are 6 inches in from each end, so we're going to mark that dimension also. Now that we have our cross piece laid out, we're going to start putting some of the details on it. The first thing we're going to do is insert one of our decorative ball finials into the bottom end of the tube. Now that we have the finial driven into place, we can go ahead and weld on some small pieces of wire that we'll hang our sign from. With the work done on the bottom part of the cross piece, we can go ahead and insert it through the upright and try and weld it in place. We want to end up with 16 inches of cross piece protruding through, and we're very, very close to that right now. What we're going to do is take our steel square and clamp the two pieces together and check our measurement again. We're a little bit long. Let's see if we can tap it down. That's just what we want. Tighten that up a little bit. I'm going to hold the edge of the square against the 3-inch square tube and just visually make sure that we're straight up and down the other direction. That looks pretty good. I can go ahead and work the weld all the way around the cross piece. When you're welding all the way around an object, it's important to place yourself relative to the weld and the work so that you can see the molten metal behind the arc. This is the only way you can be sure you're getting a good weld. All right, we've got our second side welded and filled in. It's cooling for us a little bit. All we really need to do up in this area is go ahead and grind around those welds, and then we'll be ready to start painting. The first coat of primer on our signpost is dry. Notice that I say first coat. While you can usually get it completely coated with one coat, what you'll find though is that imperfections will show up once the primer is on. Right along this edge here where this sander didn't get very well, we've got a little bit of unevenness. We're going to take that off real quick and then touch up the primer. Now, down here where we've done some welding, we've got a few more items that we need to take off, and we'll probably have to do those with the grinder. There's a little bit of extra paint buildup right here on the edge. We can get that with the sandpaper. There's also a little bit of splatter here too. We'll take that off with the grinder. It's much easier to take care of these kinds of things in the primer coat since it's meant to be sanded rather than the finish coat, which doesn't sand nearly as well. This extra little step of a second coat of primer on these areas will really give you a much better finished product. We've done all of our touch-up sanding and grinding and put some more primer on all the spots that we hit. Now it's time to go ahead and put on the finish coat. The biggest problem that I find when trying to put finish coats of paint on, particularly working with a spray can, is I tend to overdo it and get drips and sags. The best way to do it is to spray small areas at a time, and if you miss something, let the first coat dry and come back and pick it up then. Particularly when you're working around detailed objects like this ball finial, if you get too much paint on, it's going to hurt you rather than help you. By continuing to move around, we can get a small amount of paint on each area, and if we have to come back, that's really no problem. In the long run, this will give you a much better paint job and a better finished product. This is especially important on vertical surfaces like this, where you can get sag very easily. As you can see, there's small areas where the primer shows through, but we'll just pick that up on a second coat. Now we'll just put the first coat on the rest of the signpost, come back for a second coat. We'll be ready to plant it in the ground. To install our decorative signpost, we needed to select a new location for it. The original post was planted close to this tree, which had grown up so much that it obscured the sign. We moved along the road here and selected our new point right here about 25 feet along the roadway, and then it was time to start digging. A post of this size needs a hole that's at least 8 inches round and 24 inches deep. We started our hole with a pointed shovel and then went over to a post hole digger and a sharpshooter to finish it out. To set the post, we used fast-setting concrete so that we would not have to wait around for it to dry. This concrete mixes and pours just like regular sack concrete, but dries in about 45 minutes. As soon as we poured the concrete, we leveled the signpost and then worked on removing the old post. By the time we had the cleanup done, the concrete was dry enough that we could check it for level and then put on the final coat of paint. We used a brush to put on a heavy final coat, watching to make sure we did not get any sag. It was a windy day and we were able to hang our sign not long after we finished painting. Be sure to join us next time when we will do a really popular project, our outdoor fireplace.
If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to our channel. 8FD Designs works out of 32,000 square feet of building on 3.5 acres in Decatur, Texas. If you want to learn more about our events, our store, our classroom, or want to come by for a shop tour, come and see us in Decatur, Texas.